So lovely to be with you. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start rather unusually. You've probably never heard a speaker say this before, but I'm going to start with an apology. And the apology is I'm stood here right now in front of all these wonderful people feeling rather nervous, actually. And I'm feeling rather nervous because Paul and Vaughan and his team at USB have been going on for weeks and seemingly months about turning up today, motivating, inspiring all these wonderful people. And so with that in mind, I'm stood here under a little bit of pressure and feeling a bit nervous. And while I was being introduced, and thank you very much for that, Ryan, while I was being introduced, I was thinking, how do I motivate and inspire, 80 people? And I've come up with an idea. So if it's okay and you indulge me for a second, here's what I've got in mind. In order for me to motivate and inspire all of you, in turn, I thought you could motivate and inspire me just to start things off. Would that be okay? Yes or no is fine. Fantastic. Okay, so here's what I've got in mind. What I'd like you to do, please, is turn to the person sitting next to you and repeat the words I'm just about to give you. Would that be okay? Great. So just find a new friend and repeat the words I'm just about to give you. Ready? I think I'm going to like this guy. Fabulous. Thank you so much. I'm feeling so much better about myself now. So, great stuff. Thank you so much. Now, I realize I've been in South Africa a couple of times. Great to be back. But please raise your hand if you've never heard me speak before. Wow, okay. And raise your hand if you have heard me speak before. And please raise your hand if you couldn't care less whether you've heard me speak before or not. Fantastic. No really honest ones in the group. Okay, so one thing you may not know about me, I run a business, have done so for 29 years. And therefore, I'd like to think of myself as very relevant, very current, out there doing all the things that my clients are doing all of the time. There is one other thing that I guess is my USP for USB, just thought of that, and that is the fact that I guarantee everything I do. I'm a great believer in delivering value. I mean, that's ultimately, as event planners, as bookers, that's one of the things you're really, really mindful of, and that's return on investment. So I can give you more details if you ever want to have a conversation. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I try to pick the clients that I work with because I want to add really meaningful value. I'm all about action, not necessarily about the theory. Before we go any further, I should also tell you everything that I do is very interactive. So I am going to be asking somebody in a moment to just come up on stage and help me with the first part of my presentation, if that's okay. In fact, do we have a volunteer that's willing to just step up on stage? No, that's called wall-to-wall apathy in the UK, just so we're clear. So let's... I'm aware you've been sitting around now for about 45 minutes, probably already looking forward to the next muffin. So here's what we're going to do. Team exercise, you are going to follow my lead, okay? So without knocking the person sitting next to you, could you just put your arm out horizontally in front of you or to the side? Doesn't really matter which. Just like that. Fantastic. All I'd like to do is just copy me now, okay? Raise your arm a little like this, a little bit more like this, a bit more like this, a bit more like this. Stretch them up to the ceilings. Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. When I ask for a volunteer, that's what you do, okay? Just so we're clear. If you would indulge me just for 1 second more, I would like to take you back to 1976. In 1976, I was 7 years old. Yes, I know, ladies. But in 1976, I was 7 years old. I was the eldest of 5 children. That's not remarkable. What is remarkable is that my father, who was a very, very successful entrepreneur, ran 3 businesses, we lived in a big house, wanted for nothing, very sadly passed away through lung cancer just 2 years after diagnosis in 1976. As the eldest of 5 children, aged 9, with a widowed mother who was 29 at the time, obviously the future didn't look quite so rosy. And 2 years after my father's passing, my mum lost everything. She had to give up the businesses, she had no entrepreneurial skill, we lived in a big house which she couldn't afford to run, and we ended up in welfare accommodation. So it's really the riches to rags story, if you like. But one of the things I remember as a child growing up was that I made a promise to myself that if ever I had the opportunity in the future to put a financial structure in place to ensure that should lightning ever strike twice, should the same thing ever happen before my mum and my family, I would be the one to make sure that that didn't happen. So I took that responsibility. They say when one door closes in life, another one seems to open. And about 3 years after my father's death, my mum met a really lovely guy. His name was Dave. Dave moved into the family household. I became his best friend. We grew up together. He helped me through my education. He was there by my side in my father's shoes for the next 12 years of my life. A really remarkable man. But as I said, during the time I was growing up, I kept making these promises. And unfortunately today, I don't have enough time to go into the full story and all the detail. But suffice to say, I made lots of promises along the way. Promises that I never fulfilled, because they remained exactly that. Sometimes, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, I've heard lots of great motivational speakers, got a very powerful message on a Friday, and by Monday it was forgotten. Why? Because life got in the way. I didn't have an action plan. I didn't put things into practice. So that was one of the very salutary lessons that I learned as a very young man and transformed my business as a result of some of those lessons. I'll come back to that shortly. Before we go any further, again, just by way of a show of hands, please raise your hand right now if when you were born, you could walk. It's not a trick question. Please raise your hand if when you were born, you could talk. What about swim or ride a bicycle? Now, here's a very important question. Who here today, when they were born, was super successful? Because it is my contention that every single person in this room today, when they were born, was super successful. How do I know that? I've seen everyone here today have a conversation. I've seen everyone walk into this room and take a seat. So what I know about you, and what I know about most of the clients I work with, is they have a natural ability to achieve anything they want to achieve. But two things had to happen along the way for them to take that natural ability and turn it into a learned skill. Something they repeated day after day, like walking, talking, swimming, riding a bicycle, they did every single day to the extent they do it without thinking. And success is measured and dealt with and is learned in exactly the same way. I'm a great believer in that. We heard from Lynn earlier about the Starbucks model, about building customer experience. Change and all the challenges that brings. As a little group exercise, just for a moment, all I'd like everyone to do is put their hands together. Just like this, instinctively. Clasp your hands together, one thumb on top of another. Look down, tell me whether your left thumb is on the top or your right thumb is on the top. So if your left thumb is on the top, raise your hand. Fantastic. Right thumb on the top, raise your hands. Always about 40, 60, 50, 50. Now, the reason I know it's generally equally spread across a room full of people is because the first time you ever did this, clasped your hands together, probably about 3 months of age, you did so instinctively. There's no left brain, right brain involved here. It was just a complete random thing, like the toss of a coin. So what I'd like you to do now is just reclasp your hands, exactly as you did before, except this time what I'd like to do is change the position of your fingers and thumbs by simply sliding the palms in opposite directions, maintaining contact, and then reclasping your hands. How uncomfortable does that feel all of a sudden? Right? Because you've never done it this way before. First time you ever did it, brain said, that's a nice comfortable way, stick with that way for the rest of my life. So this is probably the first time you've done it the other way. So what we're going to do for 20 quick seconds is I'd like you to copy me. Move your hands backwards and forwards, keeping your palms in contact with one another, so you're sliding your palms in opposite directions, clasping, unclasping, and then reclasping your hands from position A, which was the comfortable position, to comfortable position B, because it is going to be comfortable when we finish this exercise in about 20 seconds. Anyone's hands feeling a little bit sore right now? Okay, so what I'd like to do, when I ask you to stop, is just go straight to position B. That was the uncomfortable position from before, if you remember. Okay, everyone ready? Stop, straight to position B. Comfortable or more comfortable than before? More comfortable, right? More comfortable. Maybe only a little bit more comfortable. If you are really serious about achieving success in any business, in life generally, you have to be prepared to take all these great ideas that you pick up from conferences and speakers and books, but there has to be an action plan. There has to be a follow-through. There has to be a practice. There has to be transition. Without that, you have a book full of theory for the rest of your life. So that's very much about what my business is all about and how I help businesses to transform. Finally, before I step down, I'm grateful for your time. We've got a little bit more time because we've come a long way. I haven't overshot my slot, just so we're clear. But one of the very important things I want to just leave you with is the final part of my story. Does everyone remember Dave, the wonderful man who stepped into my life, picked up when my father left off, became my best friend, my confidant, my educator, and all those other wonderful things? Yes? It took me until 1991, all of those excuses, procrastinating, promising myself about all those things I was going to do with my family before I put an action plan into place. In February 1992, Dave, just like my father before, was diagnosed with cancer, stomach cancer. 3 weeks after Dave's diagnosis, Dave was dying. I was sat by his bedside in the hospital one day. He was holding my hand. My mum, brother had gone for a walk. And he looked at me and he said, "Son, thank you for what you did for your family. I'm so proud of you." The really important word in that sentence, ladies and gentlemen, was did. What I did for my family. Not what I promised I would do, not what I thought about doing, what I did. And that has carried me through my professional life with a great degree of success. And that's the message. That's what I want to see businesses put into place. Return on investment, tangible result, which I guarantee. Discipline or regret. Write those two words down. Discipline or regret. If you don't have a pen, think about them for a second. Question, which of those two questions, which of those two words is painful? The answer is both. But here's the other guarantee I'll leave you with today. Ladies and gentlemen, discipline and regret are both painful. But if you don't do the first, I guarantee you'll always get the second. Thank you.